You're listening to a Galactic Network podcast. For more, go to gncast.com.
We are the ElseNerds.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of the ElseNerds, a production of Galactic Network. I'm Gregor Sprague, and joining me is Corey Scott and Beatmaster, because Beatmaster's on camera as well. But they're the regulars. There are, the people that I talk to all the time. We have three.
Love you guys. Too.
Yeah, I know, right?
There it is.
And that's the start of the end of the ElseNerds.
I sense some tension.
They're the regulars here. We've got three special guests, which is what I was trying to get to. We have Peter Fisher, Jackie Hern, and Brad Ludwig from all over the internets. And we are going to talk about Avengers Infinity War. And real quick, just as a warning on ElseNerds, we will shoot our mouths off without thinking, so we will both spoil things and swear liberally. Those things being Avengers Infinity War. So you have been warned, motherfucker.
Son of a... Oh, okay.
So,
Shiza. Oh.
Mother.
So, what's everyone's favorite swear?
That was a reference to the very the closing edit credit that where Samuel L. Jackson goes, "Mother."
Since Jackie started out with it, let's work backwards.
Oh.
The after credit scene of Avengers, we get Fury, and we get Maria Hill. Fury does the mother and disappears. Wasn't that essentially the stinger for Spider-Man? Aunt May catching Peter in the costume and screaming "mother" and it cutting off.
No. See, you're close. It's a little different because that's the scene that's after. It's the mid-credit scene that's after the motion credits. And she doesn't say that. She goes, "What the?" And they cut it there. But you're close. Yeah, it's, both of them hit their points for what they were, with the Spider-Man one, it was funny. With this one, it's like, yay, Sam Jackson.
Sam Jackson being Sam Jackson.
Yes. Now go the fuck to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have rather it was Fury disappears and then Maria Hill says it. Just because Kobe Smulders would be awesome at that. But hey, we are talking about the movie. Let's back up a little bit. Let's backtrack. Gregor, you had said that you wanted to start out.
So I wanted to start because we have quite a lot of people here, and I've already talked about my feelings on the movie. Go back to insert name of ElseNerds episode here, because I don't remember which one it was, where we talked about it. It was literally right after I watched the movie. And so I want to get, because we have very interesting perspectives here. Jackie's, new to the comic book movies. We all have
the Marvel,
the Marvel movies. Yes, true. We all have varying loves for the movie and all that stuff. I don't know why I'm doing this dance, but Jackie, since we started this with you, really, with Black Panther.
What?
Now available on 4K Blu-ray. There's my Tom Merritt moment. So, Jackie, please give me your thoughts on Avengers Infinity War.
See, you're only calling on me because I told you that I have all these index cards that, I'm doing
No, I'm calling on you because I'm a gentleman and ladies first.
Oh, Christ on a cracker. I was actually trying to tweet out everything while we're going live, but okay. So overall, when I watched it in the theater, like the Monday at 9 a.m. matinee, because that's how I do it. I can't be around with huge crowds. I have to go to the matinee. I got to go early. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. But I also tweeted out, hey, could somebody please water my plants and put some food out for my cat? Because it's 2.5 hours. And but I mean, but honestly, there was never a dull moment. There was never a moment where I felt like it was wasted. And that's really hard for me because I have gone to movies and I walk out because I'm a projectionist, like originally a projectionist by trade. I'm a certified projectionist. So like I have had to sit through and screen a bunch of movies, and with this, like, there was never a moment I felt like I need a break. And for me, that's hard. That's really hard. Like, I got up like 15 times during Justice League, and I love DC. But like, it was hard for me. Well, I got up because I thought there was problems with the production of the screening. I thought the screen there was no masking in the particular theater I was in. So I went out and I said, "Could you please put the masking on?" Like, I can't, like, I know nobody else knows why they hate this movie. And I think that a lot of people hated Justice League because of the aspect ratio was set up for IMAX, even though it wasn't shot on IMAX lens. But anyways, bottom line, I really enjoyed the movie. Yeah.
Okay. So, and
sorry, I went off.
Just to refresh our memory,
I do have
you really came in to the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Black Panther, correct? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. It was Black Panther. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm also a historian. You know, I got my master's degree in history and all that crap. And So when I first heard there was a Black Panther film, I thought, oh, awesome! They're gonna make another Black Panther film. You know, like the one they did like 10 to 15 years ago on the Black Panthers. And also, I will shout out that, like, I recognize some comparisons, like T'Challa's throne is kind of a wicker throne, just like the wicker thrones that kind of, or chairs that a lot of the Black Panthers, like Huey Newton and others, used when they took photo ops, you know, back in the day for Black Panthers. But there was so much about Black Panther I loved outside of that, of course. But I mean, it was the first film in my lifetime I've ever seen that had so many very unique female character roles that we've never seen before. We've never seen, like, more than at least one unique role for a Black woman or a white woman or any woman in general. And so Black Panther, to me, in that regard, and then also the fact that the villain, a Killmonger, was somebody that it was right. He was right. He was right all along. And not only did we love him, there was the hero loved him, T'Challa. So, like, there was so many things about Black Panther I loved. And honestly, I didn't quite think about this when I first watched Avengers Infinity War. But I realized that what I really liked about it was that I kind of like the dark ending of this film. And but I'm going to stop right there because I know you guys have a buttload of stuff to say before then.
Yeah. So Peter, let's go with you. What are your thoughts on the movie? Like, just overall right now, then we'll dive down deeper. And
did you have an extensive exposure to the Marvel Cinematic Universe going in?
Yes. From all the way back to Blade, and actually all the way back to like the 1970s see-through shield on the front of the motorcycle, Captain America, and the.
My dream was to have a van that could shoot a motorcycle out the back. That was all I wanted to be as a kid.
Right.
Oh, snap.
Yeah. It was good. Maybe just behind Black Panther in like number 2 or number 3 and of all the Marvel. Well, actually, I would put Thor Ragnarok, then Black Panther, then Infinity War. And well, spoiler, most of the people die, and spoiler, most of them were on set during the filming of part 2. So as in true comic book fashion, dead ain't dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Spider-Man on Titan was probably the most emotional part of the movie. At the end, I'll let someone else spoil what happened to Spider-Man there. But yeah, and I've heard it said that this isn't actually a movie about the heroes. It's a story of Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
And because like most Marvel movies are, here are the heroes, you follow the heroes through the whole story, whereas this is like sort of like Game of Thrones in the book form, where like you'll have a chapter, and the chapter's for Jaime, and the next chapter will be for Jon Snow, and the next chapter will be this. But the thing that goes through the whole all of it is you start off with the Guardians. Actually, no, you start off with the refugee ship from Asgard, and it's Thor and Loki and the Hulk, and there's Thanos. So there's a big fight to go away, and then you get to New York, and Thanos's children are there to get the Eye of Agamotto from thing, and then you go someplace else. But it's sort of like a metaphor. It's like a necklace where all the hero stories are beads on it, but Thanos is the through line through the whole thing.
So, Brad, what was your thought on the movie?
And Brad, we should let the audience know if they're not familiar with you. Brad and I are the old comic book people. In fact, we could probably do a show called This Old Comic, where we just wander through and like refit staples in old comic books and put in new plumbing and shit. But
that'll take away the value of it.
Yeah, as the other comic reader who screams at clouds with me, Brad, tell us your impersonation. Not your impersonation, your impression of Avengers: Infinity War.
But please do it in your old-timey voice.
Can you do that while like reconstructing a building or house, or like adding a new door jamb, like this whole...
So you want him to do it like Norm from This Old House?
Make my chest of drawers. So I liked it, and the ending, kind of the through line, I think, with all of the MCU films is it's a happy ending. You know, everybody goes, you know, through the meat grinder, they get stuff done, and in the end they save the day. And this was not that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that with a lot of the backlash that I've seen is people are like, oh, that ending was just crap. And it's like, oh, I don't know if we saw the same film. There's so much going on in the film. I loved it. We'll just go there. I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was good. It was the film that I think we needed to have. I think that a lot of people got all the FaceTime that they got, I think, was pretty even across the board for what needed to happen in that first part. I don't feel like anybody really got left out too much, if at all. Everybody had an important part to play. that showed up. So I think it was a good movie, and I'm really looking forward to the second part.
No, I'm gonna say that I think that Marvel has done movies that have been able to finish in a dark place. If you look at Civil War, if you look at Avengers: Age of Ultron, they kind of end in down notes, but then they do lift you up at the end that you're left with a sense of hope. It's like they made it, they survived. We don't know what's next, but we still have like our heroes to look forward to, still fighting in their own way. This was, where is the hope? That I think that it's different than even Empire Strikes Back, because Empire Strikes Back, yeah, we know Han gets taken off and Carbonite and everything, and we're like, oh shit, what's going to happen next? But we still have Luke get rescued by Leia and the rest of the crew, and we see them going off to find Han, and we know that there's something coming up. We know there's something coming up here, but this really is like dark in the end, and dark to the point where you just see people disappearing. But it's a very different film because, as Peter was saying, it's Thanos' movie, and the reason that you can have it be Thanos' movie is because every other character has had their stories told going into it. We've had 10 years of these other films building a Stark story and Roger's story and Natasha's story and everybody else's, so that when we come in, we feel very comfortable with them. We feel comfortable with Shuri. We feel comfortable with the people from Wakanda. And for those moments that we see them on the screen, it's like, I know these people. I love these characters. And it makes seeing them suffer that much harder, seeing them lose that much more painful. And those moments when you like, we just got our Black Panther movie right before this, and now we lose Black Panther of all people. But I was sort of grateful that it was him over the female characters from his movie, because that means there's potential to see them in the next film, maybe. But it's so interesting to me that this is something that could only be done by the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point, because of everything that they've established. Nothing else has accomplished this level of filmmaking, I think. TV hasn't really been able to do this. It's not like there's 6 other shows that all come together into one big giant miniseries, except for a Marvel show, which unfortunately didn't work out really great, but still it was something of like, oh yeah, here's your Defenders show after we've established the 4 characters in their own shows. This was just gigantic and such an accomplishment, and to feel that emotional pull at the end of it is a big statement as to how much work they put into it to make that pay off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Corey, you got anything else you want to add to your review of Infinity War, or should I go to Beatmaster?
Go to Beat.
Go to Beat. Give me a review. This is a rare on-camera appearance for you.
Hey,
So
people may not realize that Beat is producing 4 other shows in the background while he's doing this one.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm aware. I'm aware of a lot of things Beat does. He's an amazing master of beats.
No. I was the Hawkeye.
He's a master beater.
Oh, God.
No.
Never heard that one before.
I'm sorry, it was low-hanging fruit. I had to take the joke.
No, he's just saying that it's
right.
an ElseNerds joke, so of course nobody's ever heard it before.
Not at all.
So,
Well, Corey's right with the culmination of all things that came before, but you guys remember, most of you, how Avengers, the first one, was like, you can't top that. You can't possibly bring all the characters into play with their own movies and then bring together the team and get that feeling of their 360 you saw in the battle scene where they came together as the team. If we're thinking that's the hate of everything possible. And the second Avengers showed us, yeah, it's hard to replicate that. Along comes Infinity War and was like, that's uncharted territory. That was beyond comprehension. It goes that far that I can't even make a list like Peter did, because I can't say where it lies, because it's something outside of it. It's something like an event comic. We had that before. You can't say, I like this run of this person and author and of that character. It's a Crisis on Infinite Earth or something of that scope.
Yeah, it would take George Perez to draw this.
Yes, and it's just amazing what they pulled off with the amount of characters, with the antagonist being some well thought out, complex character. You can overstate it, but he was by far the most drawn out character they had. Well, Killmonger was quite there as well, but Thanos was always present in a certain degree and always in the background, laughing his arse off in the end credits or stuff like that. And then he comes in and draws all the attention and never loses me. It was like, how is that possible? That purple California raisin guy has so much depth, and also what they did with his relationship with the other characters, his statements, if you agree or not, was something profound that you could think about with other people, argue about from a comic book movie. So just amazed about what happened there. And as you said, every character got its place. Even Mantis was there and had her part. Small things. You bring in a Dinklage and make him a giant dwarf.
Yeah.
And so other movies try to make jokes, try they, and they never go there, or they aren't. They're off character, but the humor is in the situation, not just what they say. Just, I'm Groot, I'm Captain America, things like that. People can relate to these characters before they come in, and then the interaction between them gives you so much more. It's just, holy shit, what a time to be in, and what the fuck DC, but we're not going there yet.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's fair to compare DC and what they've had the time to do. Whatever choices they've made, we are talking about 10 years of films to get to this, and DC has not had that and has not put out the number of films, had the successes, sure, but this is an accomplishment that it took time, it took planning, it took the right people being in place, it took a lot of world building and character building to accomplish this.
But the thing is, they did it with characters, Marvel, that I was not that much into Captain America at all. Iron Man, who cares? I'm just honest. Before it came out and everything, it was just like, okay. And every time they showed how they can give them more than just on the page. And that's for some people is an issue, what they change. But the MCU is now its own thing. It's not just an adaptation. It has its own spirit. It has its own flavor and everything, so that many people, when you have a conversation about comic book characters that you can do now in mainstream, think about that alone, that you have people relating to these characters, not in the way you do, Corey or Brad did decades before, centuries, or Gregor, but that you can relate on a level that is as genuine as yours. So it's a win-win for everybody involved. And that's the thing that the other company we won't mention wasn't able to. They had characters they were very profound, the iconoclastic, and they just went against what the characters stood for. So Marvel did something, they changed it around, but in a way that they made it work for the movies first and foremost, not to just sell toys. And then they went all the direction lately with for Ragnarok and Black Panther. So they amped up the quality of the storytelling itself. It's no... I love the first 4, but it was something else compared to more meaty movies later. But still, it had something. And it's just a big appreciation of what all people involved did. The actors, what Kevin Feige did as the head of the whole thing, and even Bob Iger that had the vision to say, okay, people, do that. Get Perlmutter out of here. He is an annoyance. Get back the creative team from Marvel itself that was in a way also of the storytellers, and let them do their thing. And all this isn't normal for Hollywood, as I understand it, from what I read, from what I hear, and other things. So I'm not sure if you're ever going to get to a point that can replicate that. Then end it on a note that you just say, more, please.
Yeah.
After 10 years.
So it's interesting to hit back on the comparisons. It's hard for any comic book, any shared universe comic book publisher who is wanting to break into movies, TV shows, something besides comics, to do that and then say they're going to do a connected universe, and then everyone go, oh, so you're going to do a Marvel thing, and just start talking really, really fast about all the products from their diehard fans, whether it be, DC Comics, Valiant Entertainment, Archie Comics, whoever.
The Transformers shared universe that they're trying to pull off with Micronauts and G.I. Joe, the Universal Monster universe that they tried to do with the Mummy and Dracula. That's exactly the point, is that people are coming in and expecting to achieve these kinds of results without having the wherewithal to develop the plan and put the right people in place. They may think that they're putting the right people in place, but they also might just think, hey, this person's bankable, we're going to throw them in this. Marvel developed actors that a lot of which we didn't know before being in this universe, or we didn't know well, and we didn't know what they were capable of.
Or we knew enough about, but they had lots of problems. So having Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man was a big gamble for them, because they didn't know whether he'd relapse or not.
Yeah, because he fucking woke up in some next door neighbor's kid's crib. Can you imagine that happening today? Like Kevin Spacey waking up in a random kid's next door neighbor kid's crib. And now Robert Downey Jr. surpassed that. He's okay. He's all right. He's good. He's good in Hollywood.
They didn't even have all their toys in their toolbox. The X-Men aren't there.
Right.
Which is a huge part of Marvel. So even more props to Kevin Feige and all people involved. And we're not going to say they're all saints. There were the thing with Patty Jenkins and 4-2 that didn't work out. With Ant-Man.
Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright. Things happen. But the movies rarely had an issue because of it, unlike other productions. Not comics, just in general. Just what Marvel pulled off. It's not just for comic book adaptations. Great. Tell me another franchise ever accomplishing something like the MCU did.
I think where DC had their problem is they saw Zack Snyder as their Kevin Feige, which I've often compared Zack Snyder to South Park's Cartman's Revenge Company, where I know we're going live, so I'm not going to say what he does, but everything he does to get revenge is the exact same thing, which is what Zack Snyder seems to do. Every movie is like a remake of Watchmen or 300. Because, like, you have Man of Steel. Superman is basically a sun god, and you make him dark and moody. Like, when he's Clark Kent, I could see it, but when Superman comes out, it's like, yeah, I guess that's him. It's somewhere in the corner there in the shadow, but he's a sun god. Have him be glowing every time he's on, but
That's the thing that I'm not a Snyder hater. I defended him various times in chat and elsewhere here, and he's just a visionary director in various things, but he brought his personal philosophical ideas into it, which clash with the characters' MO, and it didn't help that David Goyer was there too and didn't get pushed back by a better director, which on the movies like Nolan put him in his place, and it worked out.
Well, I think it seemed like Christopher Nolan was what Warner Brothers was really pushing to be the lead on the new DC universe after what he had done in the Batman universe, and Christopher Nolan kind of stepped back from everything. But we've had characters like this around for 75 years plus, and so there's been a lot of different interpretations of Superman, and Zack Snyder coming in and having an interpretation of what he felt was the right one. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I just think that obviously audience reaction was different, but this isn't the DC review. I mean, we can't help but compare them in some ways, but this is what Marvel accomplished as Marvel, and there's just nobody that can stand up to this. The seven or eight Harry Potter movies is probably the closest, by having something where there was planning from the beginning, where you had actors going the whole way through, other than some unfortunate losses along the way, and to see that project, the amount of years and the amount of growth of the kids, and seeing them grow from being young actors with not a lot of experience to being very skilled actors, and seeing what they get to do after and stuff is incredible. And that is probably the one thing I can point at and say, that's kind of oh yeah, we would like to do something like that. We would like to have a plan. But I think Marvel, even that, we can't give them that as a starting point, because their starting point was, let's make a really good Iron Man movie, and let's give the open door to what else we could do if we can extend this. But it was still a lot of chances and a lot of hope.
Yeah.
And that, okay, a couple of things. For DC, I'm going to go with this. Studios in comics have a house style. So if you work for, like at the time when Jim Lee was working for Image, if you worked on a Jim Lee book, you drew kind of like Jim Lee. If you worked for Todd McFarlane, you drew kind of like Todd McFarlane. So it stands to reason that, tonally speaking, Marvel had created a brighter sort of look to everything. You had success with Chris Nolan with the Dark Knight movies, and I have a feeling that they went, let's do a Superman movie, but like Dark Knight. And I think that they were looking to create a overarching tone, a house style, as it were, for their stuff, and it totally blew up in their faces. So that's what I wanted to say, at least about DC. So
yeah, I would say though that, because Marvel definitely did something different here with the they had the house the house style, like you pointed out, Brad, but the things that we're comparing it to that happened before were not self-contained movies where you may have needed to have seen one movie or a couple, like 3 or 4 movies or something to get it. Otherwise you're completely lost. Like every other movie that has had, that has developed into a franchise, be it Star Wars or Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or even Indiana Jones, where it's one of those things like, if it has a sequel, then you need to have seen the first one in order to understand what's going on in the second one. for the most part. With this, it's one of those like up to the first couple, after for the first couple weeks when everyone's like, so what'd you think of Infinity War? And I'm like, it's good. And I told them these spoiler-free stuff that I could of, you need to see Thor Ragnarok because it takes place right after Thor Ragnarok. If you haven't seen Black Panther, that's okay. They explain enough of it in the movie, so you're not lost and all that. Still go see Black Panther because it is freaking awesome.
Oh, it's amazing. That's the only reason I'm here right now.
But it's it's one of those things where this is one of the first things that, I mean, with everyone, with like Corey, like you pointed out, with like even how Star Wars is trying to do an extended shared universe thing, and
but that's now become a morphing of the movie industry as a whole, having a continual extended bankable IP. And I blame Harry Potter for that, really.
Not even that. You can blame the audiences. It's the same with music and every other cultural aspect, that people prefer seeing things they already know they're gonna like.
We have a Magnum PI show coming back on the air. We have Murphy Brown returning. We've got the new Roseanne. The idea of bringing things back.
No, let me spin that on its ear, though.
Can we talk about Star Wars for just a quick second? And you let me know, because like I feel so weird about the Solo movie. But the one reason why I'm super pumped about going to see Solo is Donald Glover, because this is America, Atlanta. Like I'm so like obsessed with Donald Glover right now, and as Lando Calrissian. So like, but aside from that, I really don't care. Like, and I mean, I'm somebody who's played multiple Star Wars games. I played Star Wars Galaxies for years. Like, but like I like. I'm kind of tired of, like, regenerating the story in different ways.
It's Disney, after all, so they have that in their DNA since the beginning.
And I'm sorry to take us off track. Don't.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
No, that's something we're talking about, and also the fact that Star Wars, since I was a kid, is in between the films. Splinter of the Mind's Eye came out as a novel, and it was a story that wasn't an adaptation of the films. It was something that happened in between the movies and had to be taken out of continuity because it didn't know what to do. But it was like I walked into a store and there's a book about Star Wars that wasn't just a retelling of Star Wars. The Star Wars comics started coming out from Marvel regularly, and they did a lot of crazy shit. But that's a big jumping off point to say that Star Wars was always bigger than what we saw in that first trilogy, very, very early on. And Marvel is that way too, because Marvel has been a shared universe since Stan and Jack started creating stuff together. When they took
Disney.
That honestly, that is my number one problem with Marvel, is it's such a jumping off point. Like I can't fucking handle it. It's so much stress. There's so many characters. There's so many things going on.
But
and I can't, like.
You said you were a DC fan yourself before the show or during.
Yeah.
So it's not foreign to you, the idea, the concept. It's not
something that. No. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4 characters. Yeah. But with Marvel, you've got 70,000 characters all in the same place in this fucking movie. And like, no, I mean, it's not a fucking movie because it was actually really good. And like, actually, come back to me. You guys keep talking, but I have questions for you about like why certain characters we use. So
I was just going to point out with the whole DC, because in the comics they haven't done anything like Crisis on Infinite Earths, Final Crisis.
Well, so the reason why they do things like Crisis on Infinite Earths and everything with the crisis and a title afterwards is to give that jumping on point to the new reader. because they do have an extensive universe. They do have an extensive amount of characters and storylines, and they need to kind of dial it back every once in a while for the newbie. Now, when I was a kid, they didn't do that. It was, I picked up a comic, it could be in the middle of a storyline. It was the writers who said, hey, here's what you need to know of where we are in the story so far, who these characters are, to take you on to that next step. That was in the writing. It wasn't in the indicia.
You'd see a little asterisk, and for more, check out Fantastic Four, number 238.
Yeah, great way to sell their comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was really weird when it was in a Batman book. You're like, wait, why are they referencing Fantastic Four?
Boom.
But
because Julius Schwartz is drunk.
Again.
But I was
go ahead.
DC isn't failing when you look at TV shows.
No, and that's the beauty of the DC TV universe, is because it started small again, and then everything that you need to know as it expands out is already there for you, and it's accessible. You know, the problem isn't that these things have too many characters. The problem is how they tell the story with those characters, and can they bring it down and condense it for the average reader as opposed to the lifetime reader, and for the average reader who isn't necessarily feeling invited into the comics. That's why there's these movies.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like I look at this with DC where, yes, the 4 TV shows that they have on the DCW, well, 4 of them are interconnected. Black Lightning is separate.
Thank God.
And all that
for the time being.
Right, Supergirl was too.
Well, yeah, but Supergirl was up until the episode where the Flash came in.
Right.
And all that. In the first season. We didn't get none of that in Black Lightning in this first season, unless there was something that I missed when I caught up on Netflix.
No.
Well, there was mentions of Supergirl and Vixen, which brings the question, are they on Earth 1 or Earth whatever Supergirl's on? Because Supergirl wasn't known on that world, that Earth. Yeah. So anyway,
well,
I like thinking that they're on Earth C- with just a lot of animals from Captain Carrot.
But but even with like the stuff that they're developing, you know, like for the DC Universe streaming service, where they've got a Swamp Thing TV series, and you know the new Titans live action show, and even Young Justice season 3, a lot of the shows on there have a couple of similarities besides the fact that they're all DC properties, and that's Greg Berlanti and all this.
He's the Kevin Feige of TV for them. Yes,
exactly. And it's you know, they're sort of weighing this thing of like, okay, do we need a whole big shared universe? No, we just want to tell great stories, or stories in the case of Gotham.
One thing I do want to point out is what made Iron Man great in 2008 is that they took a chance.
Yes. Mm-hmm. No, definitely. It was because this was a Marvel Studios at the time. I don't even think they had Paramount behind them. Like they got it later. Paramount's like, hey, we'll help you distribute. You know, distribute this, and then the whole Disney thing happened after, you know, before the Avengers, came out and stuff. But I mean, the other thing I'm going to point out real quick is the fact that we're talking about Avengers: Infinity War, a movie that is if you're going to look at it, you know, with all the movies, this is what, the 14th movie, I believe. In, you know, from Iron Man to here, we've had 14 movies. The fact that it cost $316 million, only from, according to Google, the budget here was $316 million. That to me seems like, no, this should have been a lot higher. You know, the budget should have been a lot bigger. Now I know they cut production down by filming both back to back, but still.
Also, the contracts for a lot of these stars have already been in place, so this is like their 4th picture in a line of how many pictures they already signed up for from film 1. Brad, did you have something else you wanted to speak to?
Yeah, so when you're talking about the DC shows, they took a chance there. They started with Arrow, and then they brought in pre-powered Barry Allen, and then they kind of built off of that. But they took a chance. They were given kind of room to breathe. DC did give some, you can use these characters, you can't touch these over here. So they had some of those guidelines, but they took a chance and they made something great out of it. You look at the DC movies, though. DC seemed to be, we want to make something, but make it like this, or have some of the tone of that. I don't think that they really gave it the chance to experiment and be its own thing. Do you know what I'm saying? They weren't given that freedom, and it seems like you wonder how many studio notes they got throughout the entire process of making, Batman v Superman or, whatever.
Well,
Justice League.
Notes for Wonder Woman, they wanted to get rid of No Man's Land, that scene,
right?
Which
was one of the defining scenes.
Yeah. So I'd like to talk to some of these executives that, well, you can't use this character because we're using them on TV, because we're using them in the movie, and we don't want to confuse the audience. Comic book fans, don't get confused when different artists do the characters. They don't get confused when someone dies and someone takes their place, and then the person that dies comes back and they're somebody else. We don't get confused. It's the executives that get confused, and they should let the leash out a little bit for the characters in different settings, because I heard today that next season in the CW shows, they're going to bring in Batwoman.
Yep.
Now, they're not going to bring Batman, but to have Batwoman, there pretty much needs to be a Batman around somewhere.
Don't forget the Metropolis show that they will do without Superman.
Well, he's going to be
It's Lois Lane and what's his name?
Lex Luthor.
You can't have a Batwoman without a Batman?
Well, no, she got her inspiration from the Batman. Without the Batman, there wouldn't be a Robin. There wouldn't be.
But dude, one of my most favorite shows that I podcast on is Better Call Saul, and one of the great things it has everything to do with time jumping. So why can't you time jump?
Well, it's a thing of, because with what Peter's getting at with this, because it even goes in with Marvel with what, for Spider-Man, when they're, that Sony did the agreement with Marvel, and I was full on let's do Miles Morales Spider-Man. We've done Peter Parker twice now, and it hasn't gotten past the third movie and stuff like that. And Corey every time would go, but you have a character who is based, his motivations are based on the one that it's going to be. It's based off of Peter Parker.
No, I was totally down with the Miles Morales thing.
But you always
in the comics, I find frustrations of pulling Miles Morales into the mainstream Marvel universe when the Miles Morales came from the Ultimate Universe, and explaining to a comic fan, wait, this guy was in another world where Peter Parker died, but now he's hanging out with Peter Parker, and trying to get that, Marvel has this thing about pulling alternate universe characters in all the time to replace existing characters or having additions of them. And I'm just I want to be able to distill this to a new buyer in a comic store, and there's just no way to do that easily.
There isn't. You can't. And it's sad, and I had high hopes for the Ultimate Universe. I really did, because it was a great concept. You take all these established characters, give them updated, origin stories, and you do the thing. And it allowed people to come in, and maybe you could jump them off into the regular universe stuff. But Marvel and DC both are guilty of just fucking things up for themselves by doing these massive crossover events. And, you know, there's no way to safely put somebody in. I would never ask somebody to get into comics by jumping into to Superman now. It's pointless because there's 70 years of baggage, and then you've got to somehow explain, oh yeah, they just had a rebirth, and then they had the new 52 and the new 52.
Why are there 5 Robins? Why are there 5 Robins?
It's insanity. It is absolute insanity. And Marvel just did it when they, you know, collapsed all the universes and brought, you know, some of the Ultimate characters in, and it's exhausting.
Aren't these events partially to fix a convoluted universe that wasn't cohesive anymore as well? Isn't that the effect that we comic book fans, or more you, but I'm also one for other things, that if you stick too much to continuity and other such things, you throw yourself in a corner because you can't go this way or this way because there's no much room for new writers coming up with new ideas, kind of. So you have to press the reset button at times. Like that's Infinity War is, kind of.
That's the excuse of a lazy writer, to me.
It took a long time to get to the point where we had to reset these universes. And then it's like every 5 to 10 years they want to do it again and do it again. They see that the reset one time was great, but then they just keep going to that well, as opposed to doing great stories with the characters as they are.
In the early 2000s, when they, you know, Jesus Christ, we're far afield here, but when they did the 52, they solved all their problems narratively. They brought in, you know, they made some modifications, they put in some diversity, and shit happened, and it was beautiful. They didn't have to do another thing after that. And then they went, well, and then they did Flashpoint and shot everything in the ass. And narratively, everything was much darker, and it was like they were trying to take the tone of what they wanted to do with the movies and Dark Knight and all this, and it was awful. It was an abomination. And it's sad. And then they had to do another major event to fix all of the editorial mistakes that they made with their decision. And how do you... I get where you're coming from, Beat, when you say that, but you can't... Okay, part of the problem is you can't do 5 Batman books and expect not to run out of stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Marvel shot themselves in the ass in the 90s when they put out 4 Punisher books. And then all of a sudden, Punisher isn't bankable anymore. Well, no shit. You're bombarding them with 4 different books that they all have. You know, you pretty much have to buy all of them to kind of keep up with who's doing what when. And nobody had money for you. It's just pointless. And I understand it's a business, but you can't milk that machine, or you can't milk that one writer. Jesus, poor Chris Claremont. I'm surprised he can still tie his shoes for as much as they sucked his brain, and Bendis is in the same boat.
Well, now they pay Chris Claremont not to write. That's actually true. He's under contract for Marvel, and he never gets to write anything for any of their books. But so going back to the Ultimate Universe is the model for what the film universe is. That was their starting point. And the Ultimate Universe, when it was pitched, was basically like, we're giving you books that are free of continuity, that are starting today. So Spider-Man starts now this year, X-Men start now this year, and so on and so forth. And that was a great leadoff. Now, we saw the Ultimate Universe ultimately fail because I think they had no Kevin Feige. They lost editorialship. They let Jeff Loeb write the Ultimates and just go batshit crazy on it.
Oh my God. The Ultimates 3 was like...
it was a nightmare.
They lined everybody that purchased the first 2 and just kicked them all in the genitals. Here's your book.
I think there might have actually been a scheme scratched out in that by Ed McGuinness. Anyway, but we see that the idea at the beginning was sound, and that's what the movies gave us. But the other thing that movies gave us, you were talking about the house style earlier. And what Marvel did is that they started things maybe house style, but then they let them grow. And I think that the growth is what made the universe, the films, more enjoyable. By the time that we got from Captain America, the First Avenger, which is a very classic Cap, and I think is the movie that was necessary to establish Captain America, the jump to Winter Soldier is such a different tonal film. We go from Thor to Thor the Dark World, and then somehow had to Men in Black that out of our faces to get to Thor Ragnarok, which is very tonally different from what came before. But it's that individuality that they let the creators have that made everything, I think, more compelling. When we get that scene in Infinity War where the Guardians show up on the screen and we hear that music playing, and it's obviously it's something on Peter's Zune, but we're all just like, yes, this is our Guardians showing up. You feel that moment because of what James Gunn had established in his two movies. Another thing the Marvel committee didn't want. They didn't want him to have the old-timey music. They didn't want him to have those classics on the soundtrack. They wanted something that was more modern today. And he's like, no, I don't think so. But it's that gives things tonally their individual personalities. And that's what makes you know, hey, when Thor's up there, I feel this connection to Thor because I recognize Thor from his stuff. And then I recognize Iron Man from his stuff. I feel like every character got to be themselves in this movie. They got to be the best part of themselves. When Shuri's making jokes at the expense of Banner and Stark because she's obviously smarter than them, they let that happen. They let this young black female character who's only been in one movie so far,
and that movie was 2 months before.
Right, but they let her show off over two of the most established characters in the entire universe that they have, and that was a great moment, and you have 100% buy-in to that, and you're just like, yeah, sure, he kicks their ass.
I've seen some backlash where people are like, "Oh, those two guys are the most intelligent people." Well, where is she? It's like, fuck you. She made vibranium beads and created like an iPhone, iPad, Siri holographic projection system. Let's see you do that.
It's one of those things that with those people who complain about that, like with Shuri, it's like, did you not see Black Panther? Did you not see the shit that she made to where it's one of those things that like
also she spent her entire life being encouraged to be a scientist and having the resources and stuff to do that. Stark spent a lot of his life drunk and fighting his parents.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Banner spent a lot of his life on the run from everybody trying to kill him. And on the run from himself, keeping himself fighting from other people. It's not that they're not smart, but sometimes as the smartest person in the room, you're so far up your own ass that you don't see the problem because you're already solving something that doesn't exist instead of the thing that's actually in front of you. And I see that happen in tech all the time. And I think it's completely realistic that this character does that. But again, the point is the characters, I think, all get represented extremely well. If the one failing that I could see people saying about this movie towards a character would be about Peter Quill, because he fucks shit up for everybody. He's the one who makes the plan not work. But in doing that, he's very honest of who his character is, because he's recently gone through, like, his whole life was about the loss of his mom and living in space, and then finding his dad and finding out his dad is an asshole, and then losing his father, in that, the person who raised him. So to have this moment where he realizes he's just lost the only other person that he truly loves, he's going to react poorly. He's going to lose his shit.
Do that. Yeah.
He's going to lead with an emotion. And I believe that, again, that is true to the character because he's a hothead.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing with Stark as well and with Banner. They were consistent. Their shortcomings are part of their arc. That's what makes them standing out. So it isn't Shuri is smarter, and she shouldn't be because some misogynistic assholes, anti-social justice warriors bullshit. Throw that away. There are many critics out there for many things that have nothing to do with really critiquing the movie itself. It's just a political stance or whatever else. I don't give them the time of the day. I ignore that entirely.
The other thing I'll point out here is from the Wikipedia page. I've had the Wikipedia page open this whole time, and they talk about they give you the character breakdowns, and they give you Chris Hemsworth as Thor, and all this stuff. They add in here at the recommendation of Hemsworth writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely consulted Thor Ragnarok director Taika Waititi and screenwriter Eric Pearsons to help carry over the comedic and tragic elements of the retoned Thor from that film. That's something that I feel like a lot of other like that you don't get that without without learning by mistakes. So it's one of those things that to have this with a movie that happened so recently, they were filming these at the same time. Same thing with Black Panther, and yet we have all these beats in there that make sense and help, drive home these elements. And then we get, like you guys point out with the song from Guardians of the Galaxy, or when the Guardians come in and all that. And how we have this massive cast in here of people, even these secondary characters, the Ned from Spider-Man and all these other little characters, they even felt fleshed out, even though they were in one scene.
Not only that 2 million characters are already there, but they brought in a new one, Thanos. And he was the main character. There was room even for that. Because most MCU movies, now come to a little bit of a slant there, that was their weakness. They were bland. They were secondary to the story. The character arcs came before the drama, before the tension and everything. And it was intentionally this way. But it was at a point in time that I was thinking... a little bit more would be nice. And then Black Panther delivered with that. And they doubled down with the Infinity War. So all is well. And before we go into characters, I think that's the place we have to go next. Before we get the angry emails, there were not 14 movies. There were 19 if you count the Hulk movie, the first one from Universal, and Spider-Man Homecoming as well. Or there were 17 from Marvel itself. So it's not just 14.
Because we would have to include those just because of the fact that in here we get Thunderbolt Ross reprising his role. Spider-Man is in here. This is his third appearance in a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. So yeah, it's you said it was 19?
Yes.
Yeah. AKA a whole fucking lot of movies.
Now, so that's another thing too, is one of the things that we probably remember from early superhero films, trilogies or more than 3 films, is that every time they would have their next film, they would try to up the amount of characters. So Batman goes from fighting the Joker in the first film to Catwoman and Penguin in the next film, and they just keep trying to add on. And the Spider-Man films, the first ones, they go from fighting the Green Goblin to Dr. Octopus, but by the third movie, it's like, how many fucking characters can we put in this? And so it's like you try to pack so much in to keep it interesting, but you lose an actual story because of that. And that's a danger in this. But we've seen this even in the Marvel films, like the Captain America Civil War was a lot of characters, more than we'd had in just the Avengers movies right before that. So there's always a danger of trying to put too much in, and yet with all of the characters that we've seen, except for a couple, they all got their moments, and that's a huge deal. And it's established from them all being introduced in other things, but the only things that I think got glazed over were really the people that worked for Thanos, and they were just henchmen. They were powerful henchmen, but they were henchmen, and they were treated like henchmen. They had their moments to establish that they were badass, and then they got beat, as they should have, by the amount of heroes that were fighting against them, and the skills of those heroes, what they were doing. But the only character that was not really well established before that gets the lion's share of the screen time in this was Thanos. So that's why it's considered his movie. But everybody else, I think, gets to be something in this. You have your moments with Drax and Mantis and Groot. You have your moments with the people from Wakanda. You have your moments. I think that some of the original Avengers were the ones who had the least amount of screen time. But I don't feel like we lost anything with that.
I guess the one big thing that I will add that I will say I was pleasantly surprised by was, because I was pleasantly surprised throughout the movie here, was the fact that we got Ross Marquand in here. Like, from as a Walking Dead fan, sort of fallen from the wayside, but him coming in, taking over a role, from a great actor in Hugo Weaving, taking over as the Red Skull. It's called the Stonekeeper in here. That's something that just blows my mind. That
wasn't Skeletor?
No. See, Skeletor was next to Tobias Funke, who I also missed on there. I missed that that he was in there until someone said afterwards. I'm like, wait, what? They were? Oh, cool. That's awesome.
It wasn't Skeletor because you didn't hear ha ha.
But you could have, because it was Ross Marquand. He can do a lot. But yeah, I mean, it's. I'm trying to think of where to go from here.
Well, okay, so at the end we see the people who disappear. One of the things that is interesting to me is the people who are left, as far as we know, the original Avengers are all still around.
Yep.
Which I think is important to see, because
except for Cap.
No,
Cap's still
he's
there.
alive.
No,
The
Cap's
original
alive.
6 are alive.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Hawkeye is the only one that we don't see because he's not in the film at all. But this gives us the opportunity, and Fury is the only one who, is not officially an Avenger, but is from the first Avengers film, when the gathering of the team and everything. But all the rest of them are still around. Now, there's the extra characters and stuff that we get to have a part of that. Rocket, Shuri. There's some great character potential of still having a big group after this. But the fact that those original 6 are still available for this next film, I think is key to what they're trying to do, which is finish off the Avengers themselves as a set of films, as a story.
There's the thing that we have to talk about what happens next, because that's what the movie wants us to do, I guess. We know that some stuff comes back because just of the sequels coming for them. But the other question is, under what circumstances, and there were time travel stories and other things that were speculated there. But then we have Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which is something that Jackie alluded to earlier, which is with the Batwoman thing. Why can't you go backwards? Why can't you time jump and stuff? With Captain Marvel, we know that we're getting a time jump.
Yeah.
Yep. We're getting a movie from the 90s. And just the mere fact that Nick Fury has pulled out this cosmic pager to get a hold of Captain Marvel is a thing of beauty. That souped up pager from the 90s. It's just it was a sight to behold. I was very pleased with that.
But I mean, it's because that. I mean, hello, I got it tattooed on my arm, for crying out loud.
Space pager.
Yeah. That's gonna be my next one. It's just the space pager with another one on my other arm. But it was, for as a Captain Marvel fan, that's where I was like, yes, like just because. For you and Peter who didn't hear, I had a kid behind me who, for every time a character came up, you just heard Spider-Man, Superman. It's like just name off the characters, and I want to be like, We get it. We all have eyeballs. But his dad was right there. I didn't know what his dad, if his dad was, big and going to kick my ass or smaller.
If the kid was autistic.
Weren't you a kid back then when there were only the comics and no movies, and you were like, oh, I see somebody else having that T-shirt on that has that implication that he knows that character. And now it's mainstream and everybody knows about it, as you alluded to. But for that kid, look, my hero is there on the big screen.
Oh, okay,
That's so fucking awesome.
It's a little bit different from that because it was every character. Like it was, he's like Captain America. And Peter, you're right. Like I didn't know if he was autistic or anything like that. I mean, he was just really young. He's like 8 years old. Wasn't even alive when Iron Man came out, from my assumptions. And
one of the things that we talked about before the show started with Jackie was she had said that there was a point where people were applauding when Captain America came on, and that's the experience of going to see this in the theater. Is you're in a room full of other people who love these movies. Probably as much as you do, some cases more, some cases not as much. People who never stay through the credits, you're weird. But it's a shared moment. Mm-hmm. It's something that we get to experience together when you go to see a film like this. And I love the fact that people do get excited like that. And I love that there are kids who are excited to see these characters. Like I've been excited to read their comics and know their adventures my entire life. I think that's brilliant. And it's a huge accomplishment for the Marvel universe as a whole, but to get the mainstream audience to feel that excitement like I did as a kid who had to go run to a comic store or go to spinner racks at the drugstores and grab these things and collect them for years. They get that's that invitation into a world that I've known about for so long, and I'm so excited to share that world with new people. I'm just so proud of it. Even though I have no ownership of it, but it's the fact that I don't have ownership that makes it better. Is that we all get to experience this together now, and we all get to take our things from it. That's why I think the inclusion of characters like Black Panther. That's why I think the inclusion of having a female-led superhero movie coming up with Captain Marvel is so important as well. And I love every single second of it.
Yeah, and I look at this as a whole, because the other part that the kid, this is where I did turn around because it was the end. So to spoil the ending, there's everyone vanish, half the people vanish and all that stuff. And he goes with where it ended with Thanos recovering on another planet. And he's like, no, like that's it. And I'm like, this is great fucking storytelling. And I turn around and I go, you like just more assuring, like, hey, don't worry. There's another movie coming out next year. You don't have to wait. Like this is where I do the Brad voice. Back in my day, we had to wait 3 years for the sequel.
But remember how long a year was to you when you were that kid's age?
Oh, dude,
that was forever.
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of it exact off the top of my head because it seems like it flew by. Like
when the Star Wars movies were originally coming out, I would have sworn it was a decade in between each one.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm like, and dude, you're gonna have you're gonna have 2 movies in between that are Marvel cinematic movies, with Ant-Man and the Wasp. Which this is. So I want to ask you guys one thing.
Greg doesn't realize that this kid was there as part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation fulfillment, and that.
Thank you for making me feel even more like an asshole.
Wow, that took a turn.
Have you seen Fanboys, Gregor?
All I want is to go see Infinity War and sit behind Gregor. Could you do that for me, please?
My last wish was to watch a guy with balls chin just like get defeated by my favorite heroes.
So the Peter Quill thing that you mentioned earlier, that he was the loser that brought it all down and everything. That isn't even true. As Doctor Strange went through his 16 million permutations of the future, he knew what was happening. It was the only way how they could get to a good place. Beating him wasn't the solution. It wasn't an option. He would have done it.
Which is what Doctor Strange was saying.
That's just what I mentioned. So other things like that you saw the characters having an arc and doing all the things that you would expect that they would go to a place, and because they reached that level, they couldn't get beaten by that. But let's say Thor could have ended it all if he wasn't going for the chest of Thanos, but for the head. But he wanted to have a quip. He wanted to be there and say, I killed you. I was there. I killed you. If he hadn't just done his job, things would have been over. So
if he chopped him off at the wrist.
Yeah.
That, the whole jumping around in space with on Titan.
But what a tremendous fuck you to Thor and everybody. Yeah, you would have done it if you had hit me in the head, dummy. Snap.
I even took off my helmet.
No, it's a question of what is the message there.
What is the message?
Because they did everything right in Fury.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't saying, if you do this and this and this, things work out. No, the movie was going to a place that was in that you couldn't escape from. Thanos
I look at it this way, because this is one of the, like, what I've told people in talking about this that have seen the movie, where I go, this is where I full on pull the comparison to comic books, where, you know, when they've done, you know, Infinity Conquest, Infinity Gauntlet, you know, oh, Thanos is making a play for the stones here because he's missing his own testicles. Sorry, that was the reason why, but
they're on his chin.
Yeah, they're just shriveled up and a lot. So he wants to get, he wants to use that time stone to go back in time.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm 50. I figured that's what testicles look like at this point.
As they said in Star Trek, not everybody has his genitals between the legs. So
it's a fact.
He's a Bolchinian. But anyways, he goes to in the comics, it's like, you know, we're at issue 5 where Thanos has won. Thanos has beaten, not just done the mercy of snap the fingers, everyone goes away, but kills with his bare hands, like the mountain on Game of Thrones. Sorry, spoilers. You know, for the Dornishmen, there, kills Captain America, kills Thor, kills all these guys, and then leaves a small little group of people that he's like, oh, they're insignificant, and they're the ones who come and, you know, either rescue or defeat Thanos and all that. That's what I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to see. You know, we're going to see something like that in the next Avengers movie.
That's what I was thinking of. Do you think that Avengers 4, the so far non-titled, would be equivalent to like the giant size X-Men, where a new group of heroes goes and fixes stuff, goes to the island and frees the original X-Men from the living island?
I'm curious, honestly, because the whole thing about wiping people out of existence, and one of the classic things about Thanos is that he courts death. But what if being taken out of the existence of this universe doesn't mean that you don't exist in an alternate universe? What if it's that you don't just go away, matter just doesn't dissipate, and it has to come back to something. So if there's like another side, it's like the other side of the source wall from DC Comics and using Darkseid.
And that's the Soul Stone.
Right.
Because if you, from my interpretation of what happened was, and they made a big deal about the Soul Stone. The Soul Stone was the only one that required something, right? Yeah. To possess it. So we got the orange sky, which the color of the Soul Stone is orange. And that's where Thanos woke up, essentially, and talked to the child Gamora. And if you go by the comics, now granted, MCU does not stick to the comics by and large, but, you know, I have a strong feeling that everybody's in the Soul Stone.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because it makes sense to have the last movie be the perspective of the people who are still around, but there's a potential of seeing stuff from the perspective of the people who aren't around. And that's what I'm kind of curious about. At the very least, I feel like some of the things that the moves they had to make was, we know that the most likely people who would have been able to get back at Thanos are Doctor Strange, who had a perception of what needed to happen for everything. So too powerful to have. It seems like he'd know enough to fix the story. A lot of this is the characters are being sort of like attacked so fast they don't have the time to plan. In the next film, they'll have time to plan and figure out a way to fix things. But at this first, it's just like they're being attacked on so many fronts from the very beginning. They're not on their game yet. Doctor Strange would have given them too many advantages. Scarlet Witch probably would have given them too many advantages.
Yep.
But we still have the potential to see a return of Vision. And that's the other part, is all the characters did what they thought was right. What Brad was saying of Thor attacked and assumed that he had killed Thanos with that blow, but he just didn't do it the right way. But his motives were there. His motives were correct. It was just that one miss. All the people who were doing the things that they were doing things right. Scarlet Witch made the hardest decision, but made the right decision, and it was the inevitability of, but you don't understand what you're up against.
Yeah.
You think that you can do this and you think you can defeat me, but you are against the indefeatable because of the power that I hold now. But one thing that we haven't talked about, that it goes back to the very beginning of the movie, is that Thanos kills the ultimate trickster. And it seems really quick and really easy. Now, I know Loki has never been portrayed as super strong in these, but he is really wicked smart. And I feel like
No resurrection this time.
Way to go for the guy who is, if not the smartest guy in the room, the craftiest motherfucker in the room.
Yeah.
Although there is the line that Thanos, after he kills him, says there'll be no resurrection this time. Yes. So the theory is that Thanos did resurrect him after he died, when he died in, was it Thor? It was Thor.
In the first Thor.
Yeah.
When they mourned him and everything and they thought he died.
Yeah. He was brought back by Thanos, is the theory that's going around. So since Thanos isn't going to do it this time.
That was the second Thor that he died in.
No, he at the second Thor, we knew he had disguised himself as Odin.
Yep.
So at that point in time, Thor thought he was dead. Yes. But in the first one, he had supposedly died and then came back as well, I thought. Came back for Avengers.
The general assumption is that the people that died before the snap stay dead. Except for Gamora, because her soul is trapped in the Soul Stone, so there's a way for her. But Heimdall, Loki, so many, but I can't recall them all. But these are dead.
Well, wouldn't Valkyrie be on that list? Because she was on the...
Half of the Asgardians got away, as usual
Meek and the other guy are off in the universe. Half of them got away. Yes.
Okay. Many people are confused about that. It was
but why would you have those characters get away if there wasn't potential to be another Thor movie? And if there's a potential to be another Thor movie, I expect that there's a potential for more Loki.
Well, here's the brilliant part of how things have been done, because look at what we know for the Marvel Cinematic Universe that we know for 100% fucking certainty, because they are either wrapping up production and are in post production. We know 3 movies. That's it. That's, you look at it from, what was it, 2014, 2013, when they did the big slate of movies where they announced all these, Guardians Volume 2 and, and this, and then Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2. And, look, there's going to be 2 movies in between there. One of them Inhuman, so we're not going to talk about that. And stuff like that. And yet, boom, now we only have these 3. And there are people where Kevin Feige was asked, with Black Panther, well, what about a sequel? That's up to Ryan Coogler. Not saying yes or no, but
Yeah, I don't
that's
think
up
we'll
to-
ever see a list like that again.
Yeah. And then people asked C. Robert Cargill, are we going to get a Doctor Strange? A Doctor Strange sequel. He goes, I don't know. He plays it super cautious, erring more on the side of, no, we won't. And all that.
Erring on the side of, I don't want to get sued out of existence.
Well,
I don't want to be Tom Holland in an interview and just
no, honestly, I feel
leak
like,
like you're at a fucking hotel with Trump in Russia.
well, no, because I mean, Cargill here, Massa Worm, formerly from Ain't It Cool News, he knows how to do that. How to do the hype for a thing, because he's interviewed people and covered movies for a long time. So for him to say that, I mean, a lot of times you sort of got to go, I call bullshit, because that was a successful movie, had really great actors in there. There's got to be a sequel, right? Well, let's enjoy what we have here coming out that the character's also in before we talk about a sequel.
Then let me put that question to the roundtable. Which characters you want to get rid of after Avengers 4? In a way that a new team comes in, everything for something new to come in, and you have to lose some old stuff. So you think we can go on without the Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans?
So here, I'll hit it first on this one, because why the fuck not? I think I'm looking at those two characters, Iron Man and Captain America, because they have been in the most movies. Now, I don't think we get rid of, but it's either one of them does a sacrifice, a la Yondu in Guardians Volume 2, a la Merle in The Walking Dead, where it's a heroic Michael Rooker-esque death, to use his character twice, the actor twice in two different examples. And then the other one steps into a executive role or a head role of a company called the Strategic Homeland Investigative and whatever, SHIELD sort of deal. That's sort of how I see it playing out, because then or if they go the way of, well, they both could come back, because with either one of them, you're opening up the question of, well, then who becomes Cap? If Chris Evans dies, who becomes Cap? Or, well, not dies, is done. Who takes up the shield?
Okay.
Or the vibranium gauntlets?
Or Sam.
Yeah.
Shuri is the new Iron Man. I know they said Shuri is the new Black Panther. Nah. I think she shows Iron Man how to do it. Brad, do you want to go ahead and say, do you have a sacrificial lamb as for who should go, who should stay?
Kill them all.
No, it really kind of depends on. God, it's really hard. I think of the people that could go. I think Rhodey's on that list. He's already
recast him.
Oh, he's already taken it in the shorts as an individual once. I could see that, just him going to save Tony. I think I'm also struggling with the fact is I don't want any of them to go, because I really
Exactly.
I really enjoy their interpretations of the heroes that they're portraying, and I think that might be clouding my judgment. So it's like I can't trust who I'd say to get rid of.
And that's also why I didn't include Thor, because if you look at Phase 1, you have Hulk, Thor, Iron Man, and Cap.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get
Black Widow
and Hawkeye. Black Widow and Hawkeye their characters have been in so few, in such small roles, that it would feel a little bit like, okay, you're cutting off something great here with
Smaller
with
role
these two
like
characters.
Ant-Man?
But you look at Thor. Thor just got good, with Ragnarok.
He was my favorite character almost.
Yeah. And
Oh, absolutely. And I think that we can thank Taika for that.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Just the change tonally with his character between 2 and 3, and what we get in 3, we get pulled into Infinity War, and it's perfect. That bit of joviality that you would think that somebody, and now we know that he's 1,600 years old in this film, and you're technically a god. There's got to be that bit of joviality and just weird sense of humor is wonderful. Like calling Rocket a rabbit.
Yeah, it also gave a really good bridge for having his character be the one to interact the most with the Guardians in this episode.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
I want to have a spin-off just with Rabbit and him and Drax.
I wouldn't mind Rabbit mixing it up with Winter Soldier, because that was fun. I'm gonna get that arm. But that's exactly right. One of the things is, as comic fans, is we're spoiled because we have had continuous stories with these characters for, I'm 46, and so my entire life there's been a Captain America, there's been a Spider-Man, there's been an Iron Man. I didn't necessarily read the comics all the time, and like Jackie, I'm a DC person above being a Marvel person, but I read the X-Men for like decades, hardcore. But we don't often have to have an ending. Now, up until Marvel started killing every character once a quarter to bring them back 3 months later, it used to be that death meant something in comics, except for Jean Grey.
Thanks, Dan Jurgens.
Yeah, but now that's not the case, and so it's a different feeling. But it used to be that you knew Superman was going to be there next month. You knew Spider-Man was going to be there a year from now. You just felt like, yeah, I'm always going to get to continue reading these stories. It's like the Spider-Man strip in the Sunday comics. It's like they don't kill Spider-Man in that. You just, every week, here's your next Spider-Man bit. And you just get to enjoy that. In the movies, because it's actors, because they can't do this forever, maybe it's realistic that they're going to kill some of these characters off. But that's not what I want. I didn't want to see Han die in the Star Wars movies. I felt like, just don't show me that.
Yeah.
Like when there was the book about Chewbacca dying a couple decades back, it's they killed Chewbacca in the book. Then why the fuck do I want to read that book? That's not the story I'm looking for, and that's not the story I'm looking for in these films. I get the characters die in them, but that's not what I'm hoping for. It's not my Avengers snuff film fantasy. I look at these things because I want to see these characters being heroic, being fun, being a team. That's what I love about it. And so, yeah, maybe Evans doesn't come back as Captain America, but that doesn't mean I want to see the final Captain America story. And I certainly don't want to see the final Captain America story in the mix of a whole huge story of other characters, because that would be a very intimate story that I would want to see, if anything. And I really don't even want that. I just want to know that somewhere out there Cap is still existing and still fighting the good fight.
But being movies, they have a little bit more leeway of killing off people, because like with the Keaton Batmans, they killed Joker. They don't do that in the comics because, like you say, every month or every week or every 2 weeks, depending on the thing, they'll need him back. But with the movie, Keaton only made it two. So it's not a every month thing. It's like every 3 years, every 2 years, whatever. So they can get away with killing off characters because they don't have to worry about selling a movie next month or the month after that or 2 years from then, because the movies are pretty much can be self-contained, and they can, like with the Spider-Man, you can go, well, this is a different Spider-Man where Uncle Ben got killed again, which is a good thing with the Homecoming. Didn't even mention Uncle Ben at all, but
Right.
because a movie is such a big thing, death is a little bit more manageable as opposed to in comics where, like, I think the death of Superman's, while it was a great thing, having him come back in 6 months started the, okay, they're dead, now they're back. Well, not so much like the Jean Grey stuff that was before that, but like DC goes, oh, look at all the money we made from killing him off, and then having all the other characters that claim to be Superman come back, and then Superman back. Well, let's do it to Batman. Okay, and we'll do it to that until it becomes like basically a meme of,
Well, Marvel's done that too. Marvel did that with Nick Fury in one movie. You know, he dies and he comes back. In Iron Man 3, Pepper seemingly dies and comes back because of the power set that they gave her at that point in time. Loki's died and come back a couple of times now, or we've at least been expected to. So a lot of the death isn't permanent. Groot died, and we're told that isn't the same Groot, but we all still perceive him as Groot. There's certainly a comic bookness to that. But the catch-22 of these Marvel films is that versus the Batman movies, even if you count the Burton movies with the Schumacher movies as one set of films, and throw up in your mouth a little bit when you do it, it's still 4 movies that in a time that they didn't kill Batman in any of them, they just stopped making them. But this is 10 years of movies that were going on forward of it's still all a tied continuity. So when we kill off a Captain America in this, it's not like there's not going to be another 10 years potentially of Marvel films, but that's 10 years of Marvel films where there's not a Cap. That's 10 years where there's not potentially an Iron Man. And sure, they're creating these other characters and hoping that they do as well. But so far, the only character that has not been part of the Avengers that's done as well has been Black Panther, because Ant-Man hasn't done it and Doctor Strange hasn't done it. And that's what they're building on. They're hoping that the next films will do as well, but they haven't competed in that way so far.
There are other things. You can only do so many movies without cannibalizing your own market. Because if they do like 5 to 10 movies a year, there's no room for their box office. So on the practical level, you can... Yeah, I don't think they could accomplish that. So there's wiggle room. The other question is, like we had earlier with Miles Morales being the Spider-Man, who's the character? The actor? Or the character you have there? War Machine.
Right.
Not the same actor. Did we really care? Or was that a deal breaker? He wasn't one of the main characters, of course. But at one point, if Downey Jr. isn't cut for it, doesn't mean that Iron Man won't return.
We just won't get a Tony Stark one.
Well, but even then, I feel like we get, like, this is where you use the comic books as the inspiration, where like you look at comics right now, where we've had the death of Iron Man in or the supposed death of Iron Man in Civil War II, which thus led to Iron Man being the mantle being taken up by both Doctor Doom and Riri Williams. Now some of that wouldn't really be able to work out quite yet because of, you know, who owns who and all that stuff. But we do stuff like that, you know, and we just got done with Sam Wilson as Captain America in the comics, going side by side with Steve Rogers. Now, granted, a lot of people don't like that Steve Rogers, you know, Hail Hydra. But it's one of those things that you use this to where you get, you know, 5, 10, years, with how the movies are paced now, of an Ironheart, or Sam Wilson's Captain America, or Bucky Barnes' Captain America. Before,
but is that going to what comics forgive? I think is very different from what an audience in films forgive, which is. Yep. I'm going to see a Captain America movie, so I expect it to be Captain America. I don't expect it to be Falcon in Captain America's outfit. I don't expect it to be Bucky in Captain America's outfit. I expect it to be Captain America. The idea of an Ant-Man getting a film or a Doctor Strange getting a film is that they get to be their next trilogy. They get to be their next universe building things themselves, as opposed to, oh, well, now War Machine becomes Iron Man. Well, that would be great, but the personality of War Machine is very different from Tony Stark as Iron Man. And it's not like we're going to get a series of Iron Man movies that is going to feel like Iron Man movies. They're going to feel like a different movie. So why not just make it War Machine?
So
why not just make an Ironheart film, if that's what you
treat
want?
it like comics in the sense that it changes the writer. It ends, the run ends after phase 4. Mm-hmm. And then you get other actors to portray them. Would that be a deal breaker? That's my question to you guys. Can you live with the Iron Man still being Tony Stark, but not being Robert Downey Jr.?
Yes, because that's what I was alluding to. Was we get, a 5-10 year period of Ironheart, of, Bucky as Cap and whatnot, and then that's a chance for us to recast Tony Stark. I mean, you look at how many times we've rebooted Spider-Man, and Aunt May keeps getting younger and younger. If they reboot Spider-Man again and they don't put Aunt May going to school with him, I'm gonna cry outright, because for fuck's sake, they're Benjamin Buttoning her. I mean, she goes. But Gregor,
you do have to acknowledge that this is Marvel's first time doing Spider-Man, so it doesn't necessarily count.
I understand that, but what I'm getting at is, here it's one of those things like with shifting the focus away from Tony Stark to a Riri Williams, or a Rhodey who would be recast, or even a Punisher. Get a little bit tricky with it, and to then get to where we get him back, but it's not Robert Downey Jr. because he's done, he's gone, he's moved on to other things.
We still haven't gotten to my Stiltman movie yet, so I don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, he's too busy building Daredevil's uniforms.
Right. Yeah. There's so much potential. Like, they're talking about doing an Eternals movie. There's still so many other things out there. And is there an Avengers movie that doesn't have these Avengers? We still keep talking about maybe a Black Widow movie. We haven't had any real talk about a Scarlet Witch Vision movie, but there's potential for it. It's just if they think it's a bankable thing that they can do a story on. There's still so many things that don't have to be Iron Man and don't have to be Captain America. It's not automatic that if you have the universe films go on, that those characters have to be at the forefront of it. But I like the idea of having a potential for them to come back. It's like when you have a character leave a major show, like Polly Perrette just left NCIS. Mm-hmm. I'm not an NCIS fan, but I love the fact that they didn't kill her character off to have the actress leave the show. There's a potential if she wanted to return in some way down the road, she can. As opposed to when Warwick left CSI, they killed off Warwick. And that bummed me out, because every time I watch the show after that, it's like I miss the old team, and there's no chance of the old team being the old team anymore.
NCIS, to get off on a little more on the sidetrack here, I believe NCIS with the past of the couple of their others have done that same thing. Like with who's the guy who's doing Bull? Like, I don't think they killed his character off either.
But they did kill off the original female lead on the show years ago. Yeah. Which maybe it was early enough that you could get away with that. And they certainly continued on. But now they've got William Valderrama on there, and fuck that. You see my point though, is
no, yeah.
You don't have to chop it off at the head for the sake of continuity. The continuity can go on. It's just, hey, there's a whole world outside of the screen that we're looking at that's still going on. And in that world, there can still be a Chris Evans Captain America. And in that world, there can still be a Tony Stark with Pepper Potts living the life that he's promised her for several movies. You know, they get to go off and be their own thing. And every once in a while, you might get them on a view screen, like you have Thunderbolt Ross show up in a virtual reality setting at some point. It's okay to do those things because in your head, you can fill in the blanks and say, there's still Cap stories happening. There's still Hulk stories happening. And I get to have that too. To just say, oh, because this is the last time we're going to get to have these actors be full-fledged members of the cast for these films, so let's just poke them. That's kind of a bummer for me. It's a bummer for me in the idea of, like, there's kids who watch these movies who get excited when the characters show up on screen and scream out their names. And then all of a sudden they have to see all of those characters just go away and they never get to think about Captain America still being out there fighting for what's right.
Yeah.
Here's an idea that I just came up with a couple minutes ago. Remember the Marvel Team Up comics? Where it'd be like Spider-Man and Daredevil for a thing. What if they do that for the next phase? Where it's not an Ant-Man movie or it's not a Spider-Man movie. It's like an Ant-Man and Spider-Man doing a thing. And
I feel like that's what most of the sequels were. In Iron Man 2, we got Black Widow and we got War Machine as actual War Machine. In Thor 2, I mean, we got some additions.
But I don't mean like Iron Man and War Machine, yeah, but Iron Man and Howard the Duck, or
For Ragnarok.
Well, we did get Iron Man and Spider-Man.
Yeah,
For Ragnarok had that to the degree, but Hulk and Thor duking it out.
yeah.
And all of them have upped the ante by having the heroes kind of come into it. And I think that, again, if they worked out the balancing act well, then it's okay. Ant-Man and Wasp is obviously where they're going next by introducing her character. But the other part of it is the bankability of taking these movies, and you always see the cartoons happen, and they're trying to emulate, like, this is what happens after that last movie that you watch. Here's your Avengers cartoon series. It's going to be really hard to have that Avengers cartoon series about the next adventures of these characters when a bunch of those characters are dead on screen.
So here's the final question I have, because part of me feels like Kevin Feige and the producers have overcorrected for the what took a lot of the steam out of Age of Ultron with revealing 20,000 movies. They haven't announced the name of what Avengers 4 is going to be called. When do you think they announce it?
I don't care. Personally.
I say they have Deadpool do it at the end credits of his film.
I mean, it's like, yeah, it's not like an important thing, but at the same time, it's one of those, like, how far do you think they make the fans wait
For the name?
Yeah.
I don't care. I wouldn't mind if it's the final scene that we see at the end of Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that we know that it's coming, but remember when you used to be able to watch a movie and not have seen the trailer? And now we're picking everything apart. I would love to see the overcorrectness of not giving everything away ahead of time.
Yeah.
That would be very brave, but I think that they're the only ones who could probably pull that off.
I think a clue is that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been renewed, but they're not going to debut until after Avengers 4.
Correct.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking like maybe a month before the release, or maybe even a week before. Well, they'll just go Avengers 4, yeah. And then...
Oh, fuck, man. If it's Avengers 4, Coulson lives, beauty.
Yeah.
No, they won't. They can't wait that long, or at least if they do, they're fools, because the people that print the posters, the people that do all the marketing, someone's gonna talk.
The toy makers.
Yeah.
That they spoil a lot of stuff lately that shouldn't have been spoiled, but yeah.
So because this is why I bring it up, because again, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp coming out in July. We have Captain Marvel coming out next March. So with what Corey is going by of, end of Captain Marvel, that's when they reveal, probably with the whole Captain Marvel will return in Avengers 4. Here comes the pain, or whatever.
Avengers 4, the quest for more money.
I got a question for you off air after that. Now that you mentioned that, but even then, that gives
Is he your sugar daddy?
2 months. But that gives them 2 months where they do the stuff like that, to where there would have to be such heavy NDAs for the poster makers, for the toy makers, and stuff like that, to not leak that stuff.
Or they do a sneak preview with the Spider-Man animated movie. So go see the Star Wars thing before this movie. We don't think people want to go see it.
Animated movie with Miles Morales?
It is.
Yes, Into the Spider-Verse or something like that. So
Yeah.
there'll be multiple Spider-Man, including Miles Morales, and probably Spider-Gwen, and
If at all, Venom.
Well, so one thing that we have is that Ant-Man and Wasp is coming up. And Ant-Man and Wasp, we assume at this point, happens concurrently with what's going on in this movie. Because I just don't know how Ant-Man and Wasp happens
I thought
in
it
a
plays
world
before
where
Infinity War.
maybe
happened.
maybe before. So maybe
they're
after
in
that we get the reveal.
or they're in the quantum realm when the snap goes and they come back, because apparently they're bringing back Janet Van.
Uh-oh. So hold on, Peter. Hold on, Peter.
Whoa, spoilers. Peter, hold on. Brad muted you.
It's too much.
And
I can't
that's what's going to happen.
Oh,
Holy shit, who knew Brad worked for Disney?
No, Disney hacked his
amazing.
computer. It was. We ain't gonna spoil the end of the movie like Mark Ruffalo did.
Oh, and before we forget, fucking Russo brothers hitting it out of the park each time right now with Winter Soldier, Infinity War. They're on a trajectory. I don't know where they're gonna go next, but damn, these guys. That's something to pull off with so little. Well, in my view, so little they had done before to go to this place and having such a direction and bringing it together. Wow, that's amazing.
No, you're dead on, because I mean their filmography from for movies only goes back to 2002, where they were directors and writers of the movie called Welcome to Collinwood. It's their third movie where it's a Marvel movie, and really what the kickoff was for them, boom in the Marvel movies and stuff like that. They did way more television before that, but I mean, still, you're right. I mean, you're right. That's the really cool thing of that is the fact that, with a lot of the writers and directors' choices for a lot of the Phase 3, even Phase 2 movies, getting James Gunn to direct and write with Nicole Perlman Guardians of the Galaxy, getting Peyton Reed to finish Ant-Man after Edgar Wright left because of issues with Marvel and stuff like that, getting Scott Dickerson, to do a Doctor Strange movie, to write and direct it with C. Robert Cargill and stuff like that, to get Ryan Coogler, which I pointed out when we talked about Black Panther, has done 3 movies, and then has done 4 short films, and I'm including Black Panther in this.
You've got to feel confident, but you got to admire the bravery, and the maybe a bit of the hubris that Marvel Films has done by getting people who were not as well known and seeing them excel in what they've achieved with these movies. Again, it's it's under a vision of someone who I think doesn't look at himself as being the guy who runs the Marvel universe so much as being the guy who picks the right people to make the Marvel Cinematic Universe happen. Pick your best team. See something and say, okay, I am not going to be directing this. Who's the right person to direct this? Who are the right storytellers to put in this? And that I can trust to then get the right cast and make all this stuff happen. And I'll be there for support, but I'm not pointing at every little thing and saying, fix this, do this other thing. That's what the Marvel committee did. And I feel like that's why they had to go.
Yeah.
But Feige seems to have a trust and the relationships he has with his directors now. This is what I think Joss Whedon left wasn't what Marvel is doing now. It was what Marvel was forced to do in the beginning. What I think Edgar Wright left was the same thing. He was leaving because the committee was telling him to do things a certain way, and he got frustrated and walked out. And someone had to come in and pick up those pieces and do their best with it. And I think they did good. But where these things are now is I could see those people saying, maybe someday I could return to that. Not right now, but maybe at some point.
The thing could say they take people that don't have that much experience or not that much to show for. They're more easy to mold into the shape that you want as a producer or as a entity. So it can go both ways.
Yeah,
and
certainly.
Then you got a Kathleen Kennedy, not to go to stray too far away, but that had issues with Lord and Miller, and you have to have trust, but you also have to still keep it somewhere in check. That
you have a responsibility to the franchise, to the characters, to the investors.
Not just that, but yes, that's on the line. And then you got people like Kevin Tsujihara at Warner Brothers that mingle in places they shouldn't, and bring in other people like Geoff Jones and don't let them do shit until Wonder Woman. And so all people involved there in Marvel, it paid out. It culminated in that movie that, given all the circumstances, never should have worked. The amount of characters, the whole narration of the several standalone stories, bringing it together, all that, just awe-inspiring.
Yeah. So I wanna finish this off, and I want to finish it off in a question to each and every one of you. I'm gonna start with Peter. Peter,
Yes.
which would be the Infinity Stone that you would want?
Probably the Space Gem, because I like to travel and I don't like lineups. So being able to go, well, let's go to Hawaii. Oh no, it's erupting. Okay, let's go someplace else. That would be a good thing.
Brad.
God, what's one that could fix my failing body?
Reality gem.
Yeah, reality would definitely do it.
Or time.
Time, yeah, go back,
Yeah.
have fun again, and go back again to have fun again.
Oh God. See, but I don't want to negate the existence of my son, so I'm very leery of the time gem. So I guess I'd have to do reality.
Well, okay, no, hold on. This is where you obviously have not seen the movie. What is it? I think it's About Time. Where in there it's sort of sci-fi movie done through a romantic drama, where you could only go back as far, like, it's a movie where the guys could time travel, stars Domhnall Gleeson, but you could only time travel back as far as your kid was born. And if you go back, like, you can't go back any further than that. And then once they get old enough, then they can do.
So hopefully you were in good shape when Alex was born, because that's as good as it's gonna get.
I was 31.
Reality seems a safe bet.
I was better when I was 31.
Well, you were younger.
I was most certainly younger.
That was a good year.
I was 15 years younger. Oh, those were glory days.
What's sad is that 15 years younger at this point doesn't seem like it's young enough.
No,
It's
it
just
really
like-
doesn't. It is not. If I could reset the clock to like 23, 24, I'd be okay. God, I'm just tired of being able to forecast the weather with my goddamn whole left arm. The joints and everything, just getting old's a bitch. Don't do it if you can avoid it.
It's fine. You can
Hey,
chop it
Brad,
off, and
I
it
was-
can be the handle for the next incarnation of Thor's hammer.
There are days where I've considered it.
Hey, Brad, just so you know, I was in high school when you had Alex.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
I was a sophomore.
So reality gem, Brad?
Yes, I will take
Beat.
reality.
We're 5 people in here, so each has to take one.
Oh, that's fine.
If we'll go by that, just saying, then I take the
Aren't there
time
6
one.
gems though?
Me and counting at 7 p.m. almost a.m. So no, yes, a reality stone would be interesting, but time as well, going back and forward, is for a sci-fi geek. Yeah, that's the most enticing one. That's
You would go forward in time to get to the next Star Trek show that isn't Discovery. See if they've made it, if they've done it right this
your
time.
almanac.
next time. Aim for the head, Corey.
Always
Not
Make
the
it
heart.
quick. Don't crush my heart.
No, time's a good stone. Gregor?
So, because no one has said it yet, and to make my gauntlet complete, you need to start with the power stone. Because then you get the power and you could just take it from everyone else.
You
and then I
got the
whole gauntlet.
power.
Oh, dude, you're wishing for wishes. Boo!
No, Gregor just wants to use it to power wash his car.
That's a
I
hell
don't,
of
because I don't want to have a car anymore.
He has the power to
That's how
suppress his
powerful
burps.
it is.
But no, because let's be honest here, Brad. If any one of us had, if all of a sudden, boom, we each get a power stone or an infinity stone, you're not gonna tell me we're not gonna try to get the other ones from the other people.
I wouldn't.
Oh, you just be happy going back in time to
No,
Back to
just
2005.
altering reality.
I'd just fix my shoulders and I'd be like, I'm done. I don't need to be rich. I don't need to. No, I'm a simple guy.
Let's see
My
what
needs are
happened.
small.
What would happen if the Wright brothers invented the jet engine?
I'm a little
Brad's
surprised.
like Luther. He's happy with Australia. He doesn't need a lot. He just needs a good amount of land.
Or
Hey.
Mel Brooks in To Be or Not to Be. All I want is peace. A little piece of Poland and a little piece of France.
So for ElseNerds fans here, I'm gonna point out that Corey just quoted Fred Armisen.
Did I really?
Yes, you did. You quoted from Portlandia.
That's
No, I
because
didn't.
Brad already used his reality stone and changed it.
What?
So Corey, what reality or what stone would you have?
Oh no, I wouldn't have a stone at all. I just have the gauntlet because I could give myself a hell of a stranger with it.
So
Dude,
you
just
have no
sit on your
stones, but hit
hand.
other people with a.
I'd rather sit on the hand of a god.
Tell you what, when I get my 3D printer, I'll make you a prosthetic hand. How's that?
I wanted to be carved of gold made by giant dwarves in space.
There, you got me there. I can't give you that.
Dinklage handy.
I gotta say, when they said Peter Dinklage was going to be in the film, I'm like, oh, we're going to get what the hell
Pip
was
the
his
Troll.
name? Pip the Troll. Thank you.
Yep.
And I'm like, when they mentioned that he was going to be in the X-Men film, I'm like, oh, is he going to be? They're talking about some characters coming in and the
You
registration.
were hoping for
Act, and
Puck.
I was thinking, I'm like Puck, and it turns out I'm the asshole. after having that thought, I'm like, oh, Pip, or oh, it's going to be Puck. I'm the asshole. There's no two ways about
natural.
it.
I think that it's one thing that he gets to play against type in these things. He's capable of being. The guy is an amazing actor. He can play pretty much anything.
Astounding actor. Absolutely.
Yeah, seriously. I would have been fine with him playing Khaleesi, but he's so good. But they hedge their bets. They're like, oh yeah, Peter Dinklage is in it. What's he play? A dwarf. Just the biggest motherfucking dwarf
dwarf you'll ever see.
And then the thing with Puck is that if you remember, Puck is actually tall.
Yeah, he was cursed and shrunk down. Yeah,
right, because he's holding that demon inside of him, which I think is, if we ever get an Alpha Flight movie, they've got to get a tall guy to play Puck, and then they have to do the
pull a Chris Evans on him.
Exactly.
and going along this being an asshole thing, the earlier thing with Jackie about the Batwoman, I didn't mean that you had to have a Batman first. It just mean you could have the Catherine Kane character, but she wouldn't be calling herself Batwoman if there wasn't a Batman to give her the idea of the name.
Yeah, I've stopped watching the shows, but I think I read that they have actually been introducing the idea of a Batman existing in Green Arrow this season, and they've mentioned Bruce Wayne.
They've mentioned Bruce Wayne in Gotham, and that's where it ended.
Yeah.
Just because DC has been very weird with what they can and cannot have. They had to ditch their Suicide Squad. They had to ditch Manu Bennett, who's a great actor and did a great job as Deathstroke. And they had to ditch him like a hot sock. And
but he had to do this Sherlana Chronicles for MTV, so then that made it better.
Yeah.
And I would like to officially offer up the Soul Stone to David Allen Greer for the years that he had to portray Jimmy No So Brown. I believe that it's important that he get his soul finally. That's an obscure reference. I feel good about that one.
As well you should.
Hey, Gregor, take us out.
Yeah. So, that's it for us, guys. If you want to give us your thoughts on Avengers: Infinity War. Give it a spoiler free or a spoiler filled as you want. You can do that by leaving us a voicemail at 805-328-3966 or emailing us mail@ElseNerds.com. You can find all these subscription options for all the shows, including some that are going to be plugged here in a second, over at gncast.com. Search for Galactic Netcasts over on Facebook and Twitter. That's where you'll find the Facebook and Twitter pages. Hey, look at that. It's also where you can find the ElseNerds over as at ElseNerds on Twitter. Mr. Peter Fisher, where can people find you?
At the moment, pretty much my Facebook page, but working on a new podcast for the network called, if you could see in the background, this is a video podcast, right? It's not just an audio.
It's both. It's both.
Yeah, at the Space Opera. So we're going to do like reviews of space operatic type movies, and I also, from time to time, do a bonus thing for the Patreon things. I haven't done that for a while, but seeing as a new podcast, I've got 5 other co-hosts. I think I have enough of people to say, well, you're going to be on that too. That it might be back pretty soon. Called Applicably Galactic App Reviews. But anyway. So that's pretty much where you can find me. Twitter, DeHorns, or This Is Not a Podcast, or Peter D. Fisher on Facebook, and that's about it.
Brad, besides planning your wedding, where can people find you?
Crying in a darkened room.
Marital bliss.
No, it has nothing to do with Anessa. It's you can find me at Alien Invasion. That's a show I do with Dave Nelson, and I do a show. At this point, it is bi-weekly, and that is Adventure Party. all at gncasts.com, where you find this fine podcast.
That's right.
And we want to thank Jackie Hern, who had to tumble out of here. We kept her up a little too late. You can follow her at JackieHern81 on the Twitter. You can also go to her Patreon, patreon.com/Jackie Hern. And if you want to know more about the stuff that she does, go to JackieHern.com. That's JackieHern.com. She's got a show that she does. It's supposed to be coming back called "Hey, Good Looking, What You Got Cooking." So it's coming back.
Nice.
I've been looking forward to that actually a lot. We also want to apologize to Matt Damon because we ran out of time. And Gregor?
Yeah. So, Beat, where can people find you since you are making an on-screen appearance here?
Nowhere really. I want to point out that Mr. Patrick Gelanti, that was on our show before, a great guy, just became a daddy. So congratulations to him.
Hey.
And all the best to him and his wife. It's a great thing. And
you'll know
kid is
sleep
adorable.
again in a year.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's that. And watch out for Christy Cates. She is on Twitch, on her channel. She is doing so much more stuff, and it's always awesome. So show
And then
up.
that 88-bit music that they're doing now as well,
Yes.
which is just incredible stuff.
Yep. And so where you will find Beat are in the chat rooms of Jackie or of Christy Cates and on Twitch or on Twitch and all over the place. He's in all.
If
the
you
chat
start
rooms.
your own podcast, odds are he's already producing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Son of a, that's you?
Yeah, he's that guy. So and Corey, you wanna tell us about some solutions to fix the universe?
I wish I had some, especially the solution for scheduling. Man, sometimes we do a show called Solutions Fix the Universe, as Gregor said. STFUcast.com. If you go over to the Ink Geeks, you can look up the shows that they do on top of that one. They've got a lot of great stuff. And then I also do Podcast of Terror here on this network with Matt Stein. We're hitting our 3rd anniversary pretty soon. It's kind of crazy, but we are looking forward to bringing you a lot of talk about penises.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there's nothing more terrifying than dick.
Well,
Mine.
I'll give you that.
No, I was going to give it to you.
Oh, that's how that works. Okay.
That's that time stone that you need again.
Son of a.
So
And Gregor.
Boy, that's a
so
good turn.
where you can find the ElseNerds taking weird turns. You can find me over at Twitter at that Gregor, on twitch.tv /that Gregor, trying to get the time. Hey, when you work retail, it's hard to find time to do stuff. But yeah, so you can find me there. And the final thing to be said is this has been a Don't Tell Glenn production. We will see you next week.
For more on this Galactic Network podcast, go to gncast.com. That's GNCASTS.com.
Mother